News WJAG 780 AM and locally at 105.9 FM. I'm Cody Ronfeld. Pleased to be talking with Congressman Jeff Fortenberry. And Congressman, how are we doing today?
Cody, always a pleasure. Intended to be up there with you today, and sorry that the weather took a bad turn, but that's part of why we have a robust farm bill that helps protect farmers from the ups and downs of weather and market volatility as well as production difficulties. And those were some of the things we had wanted to do at that Farm Bill review session today. But hopefully we'll get another date soon and set that up with you guys.
You can't really predict a Mother Nature, can you?
That's a tough one.
But anyway, well, a lot of stuff going on in Washington, particularly the averting the partial government shutdown and then President Trump declaring a national emergency, getting some pushback from that, though. I guess what overall are your thoughts on all of that going on right now?
Well, first of all, if I could go back to the Farm Bill for just one moment,
yeah.
we tend to do it in Congress. You tend to do it in the media. We veer from issue to issue. We're caught in what I call the tyranny of the urgent, and sometimes we don't take a step back and actually celebrate some good progress that's happened. So, on the Farm Bill, that was passed last year. It's being implemented. I was getting ready to bring the undersecretary out to have the review session for the local community there. It really is about one thing, and that's food security. And in America, we're so gifted with an abundance of land, innovative, smart farmers and ranchers, as well as sound public policy. Again, that's created the condition for food security by giving farmers risk management tools to weather the storms, both in the market as well as the physical environment. But also it protects those who are in vulnerable circumstances through our nutrition programs, and we also help feed the world. It's not widely known, but America has the lowest grocery prices in the world, and that's not by accident. Again, the good stewardship of our farmers and ranchers, as well as sound public policy that has created this abundance. So that's what we were there to talk about, and I'm going to continue to push that because I have a new role in the House of Representatives as what is called ranking member of the House Subcommittee on Appropriations for Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. So we have authority and oversight of about $150 billion of government programming, and so it's an important role. And that's, again, one of the reasons we wanted to have this discussion with Nebraska farmers. At the heart of America's good public policy is, though, Nebraska, because of who we are and what we produce so abundantly. So anyway, I'm sorry we're postponing that. Hopefully it'll be in early March, but we'll get back to you on that. In regards to the national emergency, look, it's interesting to note that President Bush, President Obama, as well as President Trump have all sent troops to our border. I think America, we've been a just and generous country. We've had a vibrant immigration system. It's a hallmark of who we are, allowing persons who are fleeing political persecution or who simply want to come here and make a better life for themselves, accept Americans' values, and make a contribution to our well-being. Again, it's the heart and character of who we are. But charity cannot flow out of chaos, and when you have discord and disorder at our border, it undermines the ability of the country to be generous in the first place. So a good and humane and just immigration system depends very much on a secure border. So the conditions down there are not right. It not only are people able to cross because we don't have enough barriers, enough personnel, enough technology, even though we've been building those things rapidly. It actually, again, undermines the ability of the country to have a vibrant immigration policy. I think that border security also needs to be combined with mandatory E-Verify for employers and some reasoned handling of the issue of DACA kids who were brought here through no fault of their own. If we did that, I think we'd have a winning set of policies. But it really is hypocritical for some in Congress to oppose enhanced borders when they voted for this previously.
Mm-hmm. And I guess going forward, where I guess I can't really tell the future, but do you see the national emergency going through? I mean, there might be some pushback, or there will be some pushback. But do you think overall it will be able to go through and we'll be able to utilize that money?
In my mind, the circumstances at the border constitute an emergency. Now, whether or not legally the president's declaration of a national emergency holds is going to probably go to the Supreme Court pretty quickly, and that's where it will be litigated. So, again, what we have to do in Congress is actually come up with the programmatic support to ensure that we have enhanced barriers, which includes walls in certain targeted sectors, other types of barriers, enhanced personnel, as well as technology. And through those means, we can give America more confidence that that border is rightfully secured through a combination of assets. But you also have to combine it with other policies that enhance interior enforcement. Again, remember, this is not fair to people who have a just reason and who have stood in line and who are trying to come into the country legally.
hmm Exactly, yeah. And I guess switching gears a little bit, though, was just looking on the news and seeing that Bernie Sanders stepped into the presidential race, and a lot of other Democratic candidates stepping into it. And so, I guess, what are your thoughts on all of them coming onto the race then?
Well, we're going to have a very volatile year and a half in terms of not just a presidential race, but really trying to answer the question, who are we as a people and where are we going as a nation? That's the deeper issue here. The reason you're seeing so much interest in the presidential race by so many candidates is not necessarily because they want to be president, but because they're reflecting part of the greater philosophical divide, and they're jockeying for position, but potentially be a Secretary of State or a Secretary of Interior or something else. So I think that, again, the dynamics of the race are not just by the personalities involved, it's the underlying philosophical and political divisions in the country that are sorting themselves out by geography. I will say this, I was particularly shocked and frankly outraged by Kamala Harris, who is a candidate from California, when she basically suggested that there ought to be a litmus test in terms of religious belief for whether or not you can be a judicial nominee. So you had a person here in Nebraska who was nominated for a federal bench seat. She questioned his belonging to a fraternal organization called the Knights of Columbus, which is a religious organization in its character, but does tremendous work on behalf of the poor across the country and has had a long history of involvement in great charitable causes across America. She questioned this nominee's involvement with the Knights of Columbus, and it basically implied a religious test for office, which is unconstitutional. The second problem with that, again, is as a person who's running for president has no awareness that this organization has done tremendous good for America, it flows out of a Catholic tradition, but has done tremendous good for the poor and vulnerable across America. And then third is there was pretty much silence in this regard. Senator Sass raised the issue to his credit in the United States Senate, but this is the kind of underlying philosophical divide that is going to be present in this presidential debate.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like I guess I don't want to point fingers or anything like that, but it seems like this year they're going, the Democratic candidates are going, some of them are going a little bit far left. Would you agree with that?
Well, one of the dynamics in the country that's happened is the media has divided itself up into base constituencies. You can almost turn the channel and hear what you want to hear if you're politically left or politically right. Not too much, frankly, in the middle per se, but and that's part of the problem here. So it reflects itself in terms of political dynamics, particularly in primary processes, where a person in the Democrat primary may want to pull themselves as far to the left as possible because that creates the dynamics for more intensity of interest among those who are engaged. But I think it is basically out of step where most of America is. Look, most Americans want a smart and effective federal government. They're willing to pay some taxes in order to ensure that they are safe, that the infrastructure is sound, that they have a strong economy and good opportunity, and that people are acting in a reasoned manner when we're trying to work out policy differences. That's where most Nebraskans are, and I think most Americans are.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just kind of wrapping stuff up now. One more topic that I want to talk to you about, though, is what are your thoughts on the Green New Deal?
The Green New Deal is some of the worst components of it are tax rates that are through the roof, the suggestion that livestock ought to go away. Then what happens? Are we going to grow our protein in a vat? I call that vat goop. In fact, in my new position in Congress, one of the issues before the Food and Drug Administration is how to properly regulate cultured meat. Well, I don't want to eat that stuff. I call it fake meat. And yet, part of this new Green Deal is moving away from livestock production, and that is really out of step with reality along with some of the very aggressive suggestions that aviation and such go away. With that said, I am very interested, frankly, though, in bridging to an environmentally secure and sustainable energy future, one that moves us off of the dependency of hydrocarbons into the types of renewable systems that Nebraska has the potential to lead, with the potential to be the number one producer of wind power in the country. We're a little bit behind in that regard, but we're quickly catching up. I forget the statistic, but the Nebraska Public Power District, I think, suggested that perhaps as much as 50% of its power could come from wind in the next few years. Don't hold me to that, but that's an imprecise statistic, but it is very significant. So there are some rational, reasonable things that we can do and enhance through public policy to bridge to a more sustainable future. I call that the real Green Deal.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I guess in this deal, I mean, they don't really want to use nuclear energy. They want to use that wind and solar. So you're in support of using that wind and solar then?
Oh, very much so. I think wind and solar have to be a big part of our portfolio. It cannot get us there by itself, though. This is just realities. This is just reality of technology and the real sources that we have to draw from in order to power ourselves. I'll be honest with you. I've got a geothermal system in my house. I went to a great deal of trouble and worked through the various mechanisms of financing and tax breaks to put that in my home in order to reduce my own dependence on natural gas and to show that this kind of thing can be done, and it can be done. When I was on the city council, I pressed for the second wind turbine to be used by the Lincoln Electric system. Back then, we had to subsidize it with a little bit of extra money on our own bill. I did that because I wanted to empower the industry through innovation to actually push forward and integrate wind into a spectrum on our energy portfolio. One of the possible uses of developing diversity in the energy portfolio. And this has since happened. So I think there are reasonable steps that can be taken toward an energy secure future using innovation, renewables, and smart power. But we don't want to radicalize this and make it a religion, because in that way you'll push many people away and you'll disrupt the economy.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, wrapping up here, we've been talking with Congressman Jeff Fortenberry. And Mr. Congressman, do you have anything else you want to add today?
Only that, again, I'm sorry because of weather we had to postpone the Farm Bill review session. We had an undersecretary from USDA coming out. I look forward to a good discussion with farmers in the area about the dynamics of implementation of the risk management strategies, as well as any other questions they might have for the administration. Hopefully we'll get back to it soon.
Yeah, you'll try to find a rescheduled date and kind of let people know for that?
I hate to leak out March 4th, but we're looking at March 4th. It's not consolidated yet, but that's a possibility, but we'll let you know.
All right, sounds good. Well, we've been, like I said, visiting with Congressman Jeff Fortenberry. And Mr. Fortenberry, I want to thank you for visiting with me today.
Always a pleasure, Cody. Thanks so much.